Hey my friends, what's up? Derek here from Bomb Socks with more Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ, one bite at a time. So I want to conclude kind of the last couple of weeks as we've been introduced to the three kings of united Israel. You got Saul, you got David, and you got Solomon. So as we're talking about these three, I want to remind you, I want to go back to 2006, okay? We're going back quite a while, to this person right here. Her name is Lindsay Jacob Ellis. Okay, some of you might remember her. So she was the first U.S. participant in the snowboard cross in the 2006 Winter Olympics in Torino. Snowboarding had been kind of a relatively new event. 1998 is when it came in. So this snowboard cross, all it is you just need to go through. There's no style points or anything like that there. You just got to complete the race. And she was the favorite to win this. And what happens is she's going through this race here, and you can kind of see she is the favorite. She is ahead. And what happens is she starts showboating a little bit, something that is completely unnecessary in this. You just stay the course right through there, and what happens is if she falls, she gets second place as the snowboarder from Switzerland goes through and wins. And sadly, she is infamous for taking second place, the silver, in 2006. And sadly, the next few years, she's trying to get back in, and just race after race, she is never able to get that gold medal ever. And so it was interesting. After this race in 2006, they interviewed her afterwards, and one of the things she said was, she goes, "I was having fun. Snowboarding is fun. I was ahead. I wanted to share my enthusiasm with the crowd, and I messed up. Oh well, it happens. I mean, I always grab what I go over, and I was really excited, and I had fought so hard, and I was definitely caught up in the moment. And here's the key, I forgot that I still had to win the race." And so her downfall, she got a little bit cocky. So I love this statement here. It's not how you start that matters, it's how you finish. Now, the nice thing about Lindsay Jacob Ellis is this year in 2022, she actually does win the gold in Beijing for the snowboard cross, which is awesome for her. But that's been, I think, what is that, 16 years of just going through these difficulties, but she's able to get it. Now, sadly, Saul, David, and Solomon don't end up succeeding as well, because you see what happens here. So you come back to our three kings of Israel, as you've got Saul, David, and Solomon, which we've covered really the last couple weeks. And so Saul, as you remember, Saul was motivated by his desire to please other people instead of God. Now that means his pride and his ego got in the way, right? Started off great. He was one of the greatest men. And what happens? He falls. David, King David. David and Goliath, this guy was a hero, military hero. They loved him. However, as we talked about this week with the downfall with his relationship with Bathsheba and killing her husband, so he was motivated by his desire to satisfy his physical appetite. And then you got Solomon, who we just talked about yesterday. Started off great. The wisdom of Solomon is fantastic. I mean, you get into some of the proverbs out there which are attributed to Solomon. This guy's wise and understanding. However, he was motivated by his desire for earthly kingdoms, which is riches and power. So you've got pride, physical appetite, and you've got riches and power, which this sounds familiar because Israel wanted a king. And what they ended up getting is three individuals who struggled with these things. Well, if you were to go over to Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11, you're familiar with this. This is where Jesus is tempted before he starts his mortal ministry. Now, what happens? He is tempted with three things. He is tempted with physical appetite. It's where he's fasting, and Satan comes along and says, you see those stones? Turn them into bread, right? Pride and ego. He says, if you're the Son of God, if you're really who you are, you could jump off of here and angels will save you. So he's trying to mess with his ego. And then you've got the riches and the power, where Satan says, all of this I will give to you if you'll just say, I'm the man. So what's interesting is Jesus Christ overcame all the things that these three men struggled with. So a good principle here is we trust in him as our king. He will also enable us to overcome these same things in our lives. Now you go back, all the way back to this 1 Samuel chapter 8, where Israel wanted a king. And why did they want this king? Because the rest of the world had kings, and they thought, we want to be like the rest of the world. And what they wanted him to do for them was to be their savior, basically. And what they didn't realize, that he was their king, that Jesus Christ, Jehovah, was the great king. There's a couple references here, one in Revelation chapter 19, where we are reminded that he is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, one of my favorite references is you go over to the Doctrine and Covenants, you got section 98. This is where the saints are going through all kinds of persecution and difficulties, and they really wanted someone to come in and save the day for them as well. You go to section 98, where it talks about waiting patiently on the Lord of Sabaoth, who is the Lord of the armies of Israel. And he is there as their king. And so what they didn't remember is that they had a king this whole time. And if they turn to Jesus Christ, then he will deliver them. One of my favorite quotes, Elder Holland, many of you are familiar with this quote, he says, "In the gospel of Jesus Christ, you have help from both sides of the veil, and you must never forget that. When disappointment and discouragement strike, you remember and never forget that if our eyes could be opened, we would see horses and chariots of fire as far as the eye can see, riding at reckless speed to come to our protection." Just as we're finishing up this couple weeks of just seeing these kings, it is a reminder to us that we have a king, and his name is Jesus Christ, and we are grateful for him. I am grateful for him and how he has overcome all things, and because he did that, I am able to overcome those things as well. I love that message, and that's something that children of Israel needed to understand, and I think we need to understand it as well. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and thanks so much for sharing these messages. We're grateful that you do that. Please go check out our amazingly awesome, comfortable gospel-themed socks at bombsocks.com, and you guys have a great day. Godspeed, and we'll see you. Bye-bye.